talking about the fairy gardens and indoor gardenings or dish plants on that. You need to select a container, and really the best container that you can find is one that has a hole at the bottom. The reason why you need the hole in the bottom is because if you get too much water in there, it will drain out through the bottom. And then, like this has a hole in the bottom, and so to keep the dirt from falling out, use a paper towel or coffee filters and put that in there, then the dirt won't fall out. And then put your soil in there. Like this is another container. I like to use kind of antique old stuff. There's no hole in this one, so I had to put a layer of rocks in there so the water would go in there instead of into the roots of the plant. Now this is another old one, but this one was rusty and had holes, so I didn't have to do anything to it. And then when I plant mine, I use just ordinary potting soil instead of, there's cactus soil, but ordinary potting soil works just as good for your plants.
And the cactus or succulent potting soil is like 3 times more expensive than regular potting soil, so that's what we're gonna use today too, so.
So then, the next thing is to select your plants, what you want. This is an indoor kind of little garden, and I got little plants because you want little plants in there. And then I got a little house and a little fairy. And then for the rocks, I've used shells turned upside down. And I had some mushrooms. And then I put some moss around there to cover up the soil. I like to use, something to cover up the soil so you don't see all the black soil there. So this looks like a little place where a fairy would be living. And this plant here might get too big, so what I would do when it gets bigger, I just would pinch it off at the top and it still would keep growing. And this plant also too can be pinched down. So this is a little fairy dish garden. Now this one here, these two plants are also from the same container as this one. I got it, there was 4 plants in this container, so I happened to get 2 containers out of there. These I got in the greenhouse, and they were a little spendy, so you have to be, I paid $5.50 for each of these little ones. So when you spend that much money, I mean, you gotta be careful then, and now it's gonna be kept in the house where it doesn't get too much sunlight, because if it gets full sunlight, it's going to grow too fast. And this one, it didn't cost that much, because this is a plant I had, and these are from this other one, and this was from a coleus that broke off that was growing outside. And then I had these little characters, I don't know, I picked them up at a garage sale. And then I took moss from the north side of the house to put on here. And that will grow. And so if you got moss growing, you can just go dig your own moss and put it in there. But then I had to pull out, there was some grass growing in there. So I pulled the grass out so that won't grow. So this is kind of a little bit different type of a fairy garden. Now this one here, I had 2 containers from last year, and they both were kind of overgrown and they needed revamping. So I put 2 together. But this one, to me, it's unorganized. It's kind of messy looking, and it's going to be kind of hard to make it look, kind of attractive and that for the fair. And I just put rocks on and sand on top of this one. But this is what you can do, taking them apart. But to me, this is very unorganized.
It's a little wild looking.
Now I have, this one's sitting outside, and in about 2 months it's gonna fill out, so it's probably gonna look a little bit better. So then after you have your plants, and most of the times they are labeled when you buy them, but a lot of times they aren't, and a lot of times the labels are mixed up in the store, so they aren't the correct label on there. So you should find the names, and what you can do is write the names like on a piece of paper or paper, and then attach it somehow in here, or make a book. That would be nice, you know, if you would take a picture of each plant, put the name, and if you can find some information as to how it's grown, where it comes from, and that helps a lot in judging, to have a little bit extra, but to have them named. And it's okay to use the tags, but it's not quite as attractive looking if it's on a piece of paper. And then, some of these had a tag where they were the air purifier, just like what we talked about, those plants that clean the air. A lot of these plants now are being sold as air purifier plants. And it tells in the back what they clean out in the air in the house. Okay, like this one, it's not labeled, and that, so you know, when it would come to be judging, that one would be knocked down quite a bit, because it's just kind of messy looking, it doesn't have the label, where these are labeled, but this one with a neater label is kind of placed higher than the other ones. Like at least one bracket, and you still have at least 1, 2, or 3 brackets of leaves. Marigolds is the one flower that I found that most people cut it real close up and there's no leaves on it. Sometimes you're gonna have to cut it way down to the ground and then trim it off a little bit so you have a stem that's long enough to stand in the container. And then sometimes if it calls for one bloom, when your flower starts showing color, that's considered another flower, even though it's not open. So you gotta read your list of what they say in the premium. If it says like one stem, that means it can have more than one flower. One bloom is only one flower. Or when it comes to petunias, they sometimes call a spray. So when you have a spray, you can have many flowers and many stems on there. Now petunias, they're sometimes hard to show because the leaves are kind of sticky and they pick up that little, every little piece of dirt and everything is on there. And another thing with petunias and other, you have to deadhead blossoms that have already opened. Like in the petunia, you're always going to have the flowers on top and then the flowers below there have already bloomed. So that means you got to cut it off. And not only take the blossom, you got to take the stem up to the stem where it's growing up. And this is the most common problem. The petunias are not deadheaded. Or they just pull out the little flower and still have the stem, but you got to take them all the way. And then like with this one too, I found this is a real short little container, but that works because it's a real short stem. So you find a container that's small enough to hold it in there. Sort of the chemicals like benzene and formaldehyde and other products that are found in like your carpeting, plastics, and almost every the wood in your house. And if you use these certain kinds of plants that are listed, it's gonna take this bad chemicals out of the air, so it makes it healthier for you to live in. Would be a good project or something that you could work up for the fair. And this is, it's been around for quite a while, and it's sort of coming back again, so people would use plants that make it healthy living in the house for them.
We're going to go in two different categories depending upon if they're indoor or outdoor. So if it's an outdoor flower, and you've got some flowers, it could be flower gardening. If it is like something like this that you're probably going to have indoors, it's probably going to be an indoor gardening project. So just keep that in mind. And if you register for one for fair, don't be surprised if you get a call or an email from me just asking you, is this indoor or outdoor? You want to make sure that you're in the right category.
But now
when you're doing it,
you
so.
can take them outside and put them, not in bright sunlight, but start up 3/4 sunlight, and your plants are gonna really, really grow real nice, and then you have to take them in for the winter time, because these are not hardy for here. But they love to be outside in the summertime. You have to water them a little bit, because the soil is dry.
Yeah, I have your succulent plants, I water those, so they should be pretty decent. Yeah, water your soil, because it's going to suck all of the water out of your plants into the soil.
They won't need that much water. You can put just maybe a little bit by each plant, so it goes down to the root. And if you do have a place outside where no animals will get at it, or it won't get bright sunlight, put it up like on a picnic table or bench or something where it's kind of up, where it'll get sun maybe half of the day. And you're gonna see that the plants are really gonna take off and grow real nice in the sun. But you won't have to water them probably every 3-4 weeks. Because then you don't need much water. Sometimes you have to prune down the plants to make them smaller, or to buy them small. And if you don't, when you have it in a container that's not too much dirt in there, your plant is going to stay smaller, it's not going to grow as fast. So if you have a large container, you put your plants in there, your plants are going to grow faster. So if you want them to stay small, start with a smaller container.